questions from the audience. So if you have a question for one of our former lone soldiers.
Yeah, I'm curious to ask, are those UNRWA schools located in the West Bank really anything other than breeding grounds for future generations of Hamas militants? Can any of you speak on that?
Well, here, I'll say this. I served in the Golani Brigade, so intelligence was the furthest thing from what we did. However, what I can tell you is that you face all kinds of challenges in the West Bank. I can't speak to that specific issue, I don't know. But serving in the West Bank, in each of the theaters, I served in Gaza before the disengagement, after the disengagement, went back in. I was in Lebanon, I was all throughout the West Bank, Hardov. So we saw a lot of nasty areas. The challenge in the West Bank particularly is that you go in to arrest a terrorist and you go into a home and you recognize that, wow, this is really serious stuff you're doing here. You're going into a home and you go into the home and you see there's pictures of the family and there's clothes and there's food. It's family's living there. And I'll never forget this because it really brought it home. One night, we went in, we were given intelligence that there was a terrorist in the home. We were supposed to go and arrest him. We don't ask questions. We were told. I finished as a first sergeant. I wasn't an officer. I didn't ask, do what I was told. We go in there, and you're just struck. There's kids, there's wives, there's this family, and you walk in, you feel like, oh my God, I'm disrupting this like a normal family, and I'm just disrupting their lives. We detained the guy, and we went back to the base afterwards. We turned him over to the Shabak, the Internal Security Service for the IDF. We go back to the base, we do our debrief. It's now 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. We're all sitting there drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes, debriefing. And our Mempe, our company commander, comes over and tells us, he says, listen, I just want you all to know, they interrogated him. They found there were 2 Uzis buried in a tree in his front yard. He was planning to go shoot up a school in Tel Aviv. And because of what you did tonight, there are children who are going to live. Now, that's a hard thing to say, right? Like, how do you equalize these 2 things that are in your head? On one hand, you're seeing a family and these children that are going to grow up in that environment. On the other hand, he's looking to kill innocent people in Israel. So I can't speak to your specific issue, but I can tell you it's a very challenging situation.
Okay.
I've lived in Israel for 3 years, and it's still very much part of me. And obviously, feedback is worse out there. Can you talk about kind of living in two worlds, being torn wherever you are? You're over there, you kind of think about here, you're over here, you think about there.
I can share anecdotally that I really enjoyed the experience being over there. And when you're in the service, you're doing it, you see what's going on, and as best you can, you are looking out for yourself. I think that the hardest thing really was, I know for my parents, and I assume for all of your parents as well, they have no idea at all what's going on, and I had no idea about the stress that I put on my parents. My father's a rabbi, my mom's a synagogue, and when I got back at the shul, and then the congregants all told me that my parents' smile came back. They were finally relaxed for the first time in a year and a half. And so I think while you are kind of to shower us with accolades, I think it really we really need to be thanking parents, because they're really the true heroes that are dealing with the stress of us being on the front lines, not knowing what's going on for us. So I think that's where it should be headed.
Hi, thank you so much for speaking. I just wanted to know, and this is clearly not my viewpoint, but what do you say to people when they say you're Americans, and why do you do you consider serving the American Army, and if so, or why did you not and serve for Israel instead?
Why do we serve in the Israeli army instead of the American army?
Yeah, or what do you say to people when they say should an American, the American Army be foremost, more important to you because you're an American citizen?
I would say, my last year in college, I actually asked my advisor, I wanted to join the IDF. He said, if the idea of serving the U.S. government goodbye because it'll never happen. It might not happen, but that's something I'm okay with. But then it became an issue for me, such a strong emotion I needed to serve, as I talked a little bit. I mean, I would say the idea you're kind of getting at is dual loyalty. Our Jews, people say a lot of Jews have dual loyalties, but specifically those having Godedim, those of us who serve in the Israeli army. I don't view it as at odds with America or American principles and interests. Obviously, I don't need to tell you that Israel is a great ally of the United States. It's the only democracy and the only country that even slightly, although it does to a great extent, resembles the United States in the Middle East. And I viewed, even though I didn't have a Zionistic upbringing, I certainly had an upbringing where my parents instilled in me a sense of service and respect for your country. Even in Chicago, we didn't go on, we went to Disney World one time, but we didn't go on cruises. We went to battlefield trips of the Civil War, which I loved, and now I'm doing it again with my grad school. It's phenomenal. But I had the idea of service, and I think as an American, you recognize in the Middle East that the same forces that Israel faces today, has always faced, they don't stop at Israel. Israel is in the outpost in a sense. They always come here. And so for me, it was kind of a logical extension. I first thought the American military, but then I decided I wanted to serve the Israeli army. They weren't at odds, and I think they very much support each other, but unfortunately not everybody agrees with that. Now, I will just say anecdotally, a lot of my friends at grad school and a lot of people who I've met for the last couple of years who are veterans of American veterans, they have nothing but general support to say, good job what you guys do out there. They look at you as a hero.
I would also just like to respond to that. I agree that I don't believe they're at odds at all. American, Israeli, especially for me, because I experienced it all the last week, so I myself Israeli as well. For me, it's kind of like, why do some parents who could have biological children adopt? It's because there are children out there who need love, who won't get it otherwise. So, I mean, a lot of people ask me this question, like, why Israel instead of America, especially because my service was kind of right after 9/11. And, America is a huge country. In my opinion, there's enough people to join the U.S. Army. I feel like, as a Jew, we're the adopted child in this case. We have, the percentage of people that are going to do what we did is this much. So for me, the choice is very easy.
And without belaboring your point, there's a brief analogy that I would share when I'd be asked that question, and I'd say, just like I have two parents whom I love equally, I have a country, the United States, which I love very much, as well as Israel, which I love very much. So when I put it in those kinds of terms, it's very easy to understand that love for one thing is not necessarily at the expense of another.
Just want to say one thing also.
Sorry.
America gave so much to my family. Specifically, like when I joined, a lot of my friends as well, they told me, like, listen, you're American, your parents are from Russia, they got citizenship here, they got a chance to work, they got a chance to restart their future. How can you just run away from that? Why don't you help the country that helped your family so much? And I agree with that 100%. I never would give away my loyalties to America, and I love America, but I'm first a Jew. I don't say I'm an American Jew, I don't say I'm a Russian Jew, I'm a Jewish American, I'm a Jewish Russian, and that's what's the most important to me no matter what. At the end of the day, going to the army, it's obvious that it has to be Israel. If I ever move to a different country, it's obvious that it's Israel. Anything that I do, I always say, what is it going to do for the Jewish people? What is it going to do for my people? Because at the end of the day, who do the Jews have? We have each other, correct? But again, I'm not saying there aren't people who don't like Jews and don't support Jews, but coming from a family like mine, from the Holocaust, from the pogroms, it's been written on our forehead that we're Jewish since day one. So my choice automatically was, I'm going to the Israeli army because it's not only an Israeli army, it's a Jewish defense force. I'm not only supporting Israel, I'm supporting Jews all over the world, that they're sitting in America and they know, God forbid something happens, we have an army that can protect us. And again, like he said, I also have friends in the American military, and just now during the current, what just happened in Gaza, they didn't know that I was finished with the army and I was doing something else completely. I got tons of Facebook messages, tons. We respect you, thank you so much for what you're doing. We're in the American Army, we respect you, thank you so much, we're fighting the same enemy, and I can go on and on and on. So at the end of the day, we're allies. I'm fighting for the Jewish people, but at the same time, I'm still fighting for the American people.
Do we have any other questions?
Hi, I'm Andy Wallen. I am moving to Israel next year to serve in the Israeli army. Do you guys have any
I'll give you my name and number. I do pre-army programs.
I would say in all seriousness,
Yeah.
how's your Hebrew?
My Hebrew is not stellar, and my Israeli friends tell me that they're going to laugh at me.
That's, it's not just spoke about it, throughout basic training, you can tell who the lone soldiers, who the non-Israelis are. And lone soldiers really, hundreds come from the United States, but also a significant worker from South Africa, England, Australia, and elsewhere. But you can tell who the non-Israelis are because your basic formation in the Army is a fence. It's a three-sided square. And the commander will send the chaos after and say, do this, 10 seconds, run. And you'll have all the Israelis jump to it, and for a couple seconds after, we're sitting there like, okay, what did he say? What's it mean in English? Okay, now go. So, but it actually, to be honest, I didn't know Hebrew since my bar mitzvah, and that was it. I pulled out my books from 4th grade to relearn it, but 10 years later. But really, it does detract from the service because I felt like I was watching a lot, not actually engaging. The first time we were out in the field, I was like, these maneuvers are really cool, what I'm doing, but I don't know what's going on. So I would say certainly get your Hebrew on.
I just want to echo what he said. From the job that I've done for the past couple of months, definitely 100% Hebrew. Study Hebrew, but don't be embarrassed to talk to people. That's the number one. Like most of the kids that I joined the Army with, they were not so successful because they were afraid to talk. They're afraid to say, I don't know the word, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to sit in the back, I'm going to be very quiet, I'm not going to say a word. Don't be ready. You have an accent, big deal. Voila. Everyone who started this had an accent. Who cares? Who cares? You have an accent, speak. If you want to say something, say it. If you have trouble, ask your friend. Ask the kid who's in the room with you, in your kibbutz, the Israeli. Listen, I don't know what to do. I need help. I need to learn this. And find yourself other lone soldiers that you can call during your night. You have a shot class, like an hour free. Call them. I always call my roommates and say, listen, we did this. I don't know what in the world I just did today. And he said, I did the same thing, but in Golani. And I'm like, okay, so what do we do tomorrow? And we talk to each other on the phone. We emailed each other. We gave yourself a support network. And that, I'm not going to promise anything, but I'll help you with that. Give me your name and number, and I'll get you in touch with the people who do the pre-army programs, which are free for you. And it'll help you. It'll get you in touch with friends. And it'll give you everything that you need. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. How is your Hebrew now?
I still have I actually have a weird Hebrew. I have a Russian and American accent. Everywhere I go, like, are you Russian? Are you American? Because I can't say the che and the chet. But it's good enough. Listen, my Hebrew is I'm always learning, and I still have, again, a terrible accent, and I still don't know. I mix up males and females all the time. I called my officer Mefakedet for the first 2 months because I can't get Mefakedet. One day I had a girl officer, so I was used to Mefakedet. So the first day something I was like, Mefakedet, he looks at me like this, like, I'm just like, what did I say wrong? He's like, do I look like a woman? I'm like, I don't know. The point is that it gets better as it goes, but obviously it's still not perfect. And also I live with Americans. I spoke English on my breaks. I spoke to my parents in Russian, so I have a very big balagan in my head with languages. But it got there. It's a lot better.
I would just like to say, you and someone else asked earlier about how the difference between American and being American and Israeli. I would like to say there are going to be, for me, I don't know if you guys will be, cultural shock. There will be some level of cultural shock that you won't get over, but eventually it grows on you and you don't want to get over it. And I'll just give you some examples like, I don't know, waiting in line, or where Israelis are, like they just ask you what they want to ask you. It doesn't matter if they don't know you, if they just met you. So those are a couple of things that maybe so they'll tell you about your Hebrew, and they won't tell you about the cultural shock that you will experience. My advice: everyone has to wing it for themselves. But for me, I try to stay true to myself. And I remember in the shoot in Jerusalem, I was still waiting in line to get challah on Shabbat, and I remember Israelis would tell me, there was a French guy once, he's like, I know you're a foreigner because you're waiting in the line and didn't try to butt in. So there are little cultural shock things that you will be like, okay. I didn't, it's modern, it's pretty much a little America, in terms of life, but it is the Middle East. There still are those things that you're going to be like, oh, okay, I didn't hear about this. I didn't know that.
Do we have any other questions? Oh,
I'm just curious, I don't know how common this is, but a person who went to church with me, he also volunteered for the IDF and went into the paratroopers. And he was out of he said to me that, well, he wanted the Israeli military rather than the American military because, you know, they were more involved with dealing with terrorism, all this. Yeah, so, but he did then whatever service period in the terrorist idea. How common is that individuals from around the world without any relationship with Israel would join the IDF?
I would say it's very uncommon. Extremely uncommon. I mean, in my squad, because people tell you that Israel is just a Jewish state, it is obviously, but it's a very pluralistic state. In my squad alone, I had 2 Jewish commanders throughout my service. I served Druze. Yeah, thank you. 2 Druze, I speak fast. I had 2 Druze commanders. I had more Druze than Jewish commanders. I had Circassian. I slept next to a Muslim from Abu Ghosh, who's the best hummus ever. So that it's very uncommon for non-Jews who aren't Israeli to join. During my service, I kept a blog, and a lot of people do this. It's very helpful. And people would email me, and actually, even now, I stopped writing in 2012 rather. But over the past summer, because of Operation Protective Edge, a lot of people started emailing me again, asking, how do I join? I want to join, what do I do? A lot of American veterans, 10 years in the Rangers, and they want to join the Israeli Army. I'm thinking, all right, we'll see. It's different. And also to be honest, a lot of non-Jews were asking me, saying, I'm not Jewish, how do I join? And maybe you have a better idea, but I say you can't. I don't say it like that, I'm still American, not Israeli, but I basically say, thank you so much for your support, but the only way I know, unless you become a citizen, to do Machal, this volunteer program, is if you're Jewish. The one requirement is you have to be Jewish. So,
Like he said, you have to be Jewish or have Jewish blood. Like I served with people who weren't 100% Jewish. They had just their grandfather was Jewish or grandma was Jewish. They have to have some connection to Judaism in order to be accepted into the army.
Yeah, I've never heard such a case. He probably had some
He has to,
grandparent
yeah.
or someone that was Jewish, but he was raised Christian or something.
Sounds awesome though.
Yeah.